Good morning. The time is 10:37. I want to welcome everybody to our Audit Committee meeting for for Thursday, June the 6th. And I can ask Gavin to back up. I like to call this meeting to order. Can I get a motion to call the meeting to order?
A motion to call the meeting to order.
Second.
Thank you. Got a motion by Ms. Higgins, second by Dr. Thomas. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Give me the attendance, please.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. We do have all 5 members of the Audit Committee in attendance, so we do have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. Next agenda item will be to review and approval of the meeting minutes of May 2nd, 2024, and it was sent out by the Audit Committee, and I hope everybody had an opportunity to review and read the minutes. I'll give y'all a few minutes, but
I do have one little correction.
Okay.
It's very, very little. So it just shows how far I read. On the minutes, it says meeting agenda.
Yes, correct. We can change that
You
to
changed
meeting
that.
minutes.
I was like, this is,
Yeah.
That's a pretty good catch.
yeah, well, I was like looking at the agenda. So I was like, this is ridiculous.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Myers. So can I get a motion to approve the minutes of May 2nd with the corrections? 2020.
So motion to approve the minutes with the correction. The title.
Okay. Is the motion by Ms. Higgins, second by Carl. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all. Next item, D, FY24 audit workplace unit plan activity.
Thank you, Commissioner. So this is going to be just a recap again of our FY24 audit work plan status. We are going to be asking for some action on some of these items, but to start out with a continuation of the economic development periodic audit that you all discussed at the last meeting. It has been completed. We did receive the responses originally last month from management as well as the department. And we got further clarification in the management response to that specific audit this past month. And so you will see specifically in finding number 3 of the economic development audit that management has provided their own response in addition to the department's specific response. So I believe that is what you all had requested when you tabled this last month, and certainly let us know otherwise. But if you feel inclined, we would like to move this audit forward to the Mayor and Commission for full acceptance at the next available cycle. So,
Any questions for Gavin or for the staff about the economic development report?
Could you just point out for me again where those changes are, what page?
sure, it'll be in the last, in the findings and recommendations section on page
18? 18.
yes, on finding number 3. That's correct.
Finding number 3 is that a page? What page is that? Oh, finding 1. Okay, that's the 1 is written. 3. Finding number 3.
And right under the
22.
yes, under the observation and recommendation, you'll see management response.
Right.
And then further down, you'll see the original departmental response.
Great. So that's the only addition.
That is the only change from last time that you saw it, yes.
Great.
I appreciate the opportunity to qualify that. I think what the staff are doing is fantastic. And this is a professionally done audit. And it's been a while. It's, in our government, we have a lot of folks involved. We have residents at the table, and there's a lot of steps to it, and we hadn't done it in a while. And my staff had not, the folks that have worked for me now had not been here since we've really done that.
Mm.
So it kind of got past me without me saying something. So thanks for giving me the grace to be able to address it. And I know that some of the language y'all were like, what does all that mean? And I wanted to say that I think it's spot on. It's a tough time, you know, it's tough with attrition and people, you know, remote work is something that some people highly value, others are suspicious of it. And I think the auditor and his staff were just simply saying, look, if you're gonna do that, you're gonna need some additional productivity measures, which I wholeheartedly agree with. So I appreciate you not, you know, I was ready to give you a quick response and Chair, I appreciate the wisdom of giving me a little extra time. Sorry, to slow things down. Sorry. Commissioner and Chair. But what it's not a fundamental disagreement, or I think we want to recognize the wisdom in what was written, and I agree with that.
So just for FYI, and again, I mentioned I want to bring it before the commission. Now, we won't be meeting again till July. So I'm not sure what date that may be. We might be bringing that to the full commission. So we do it go on hiatus. Actually, last night was our last sort of official till we go on break. And although we got a meeting next, special call meeting on the 14th next Friday, but we won't have a public meeting until July. I think that's
Correct, and I can clarify that if you choose to move this forward, we will have it in the cycle for the July-August meeting. So as Commissioner Fisher just pointed out, there is no June-July cycle. Nonetheless, we'll have time to get it in the hopper and have it considered by the commission at their agenda setting in July and hopefully for a vote in August. Yes.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve this for movement on to mayor and commission for a vote.
A second.
Thank you, been a motion by Commissioner Myers, second by by Dr. Higgins.
I'm closer to the commission.
Right, that's our chair.
All in favor? And opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, sticking with the FY24 audit work plan status. I do want to extend gratitude first and foremost to both Judy and Katie for working so diligently, not only on tax assessor, economic development, but also human resources. We did send out that first draft to you all last week. We are not seeking any sort of action on it today. We are still waiting the management's response, which by normal process is at least a month-long process. So that needs to play out, and we're expecting their response at the beginning of July. So we wouldn't take any formal action until you saw that response anyway. This is just sort of a first look at it. And if you had any initial questions, sort of right off the bat, let us know. We can certainly discuss it today, or you can send me any questions between now and then. But I'm thankful for not only staff, but also for HR's cooperation as well as management's during this process. It's been a interesting one with some turnover in that department, but I think everyone recognized and had patience with that. And we're hopeful that, again, having had the exit conference with the department already, they are in understanding of our recommendations. We'll certainly see what they say with regard to a response, but I think it was a good, productive conversation. And we're happy to at least finish this audit in its first draft in time as part of the fiscal year. And, certainly it'll go through a process up to the commission, but for the most part, the work plan for FY24 has been completed. So any questions you have with regard to the human resources audit?
And I apologize to staff. I've been having internet issues at home. Today is the first time I've seen this. So I have not had a chance to review it, but if some of y'all do have questions, please ask. But if not, we still have an opportunity when we have our next meeting to comment on it and stuff. But today is the first time I've seen it, so I just could not get online. So any questions?
If needed, I can certainly provide a brief synopsis of it, but that's up to y'all.
I want you to do that, Gavin.
Okay, sure. I mean, in brief, this was our one comprehensive audit. So this is a little bit different than the periodic audits you saw with economic development and tax assessor, where we did a quick in-time look at their financial compliance and performance. This was strictly a performance audit. And it was on a specific program within HR. It wasn't a departmental audit of everything that they do. This was specifically for recruitment, hiring, and orientation practices. And I think one of the things that will stick out that's different from our previous audits is more of the qualitative nature of this audit. We certainly incorporated as much quantitative metrics as we could into that. But as you'll see in some of our findings, the data itself is not always readily available. And it's not necessarily on the part of HR. I think it's well explained in our findings, but that is one of them, is that when it comes to employee recruitment, hiring, and orientation, I think we certainly can strive more for some quantitative data and provide some of those metrics, which is a similar theme that you'll see coming out of our office, is how to put performance metrics for any and all departments at the forefront of what we do and provide the data that we need. Ultimately, in talking with the HR department and going through recruitment, hiring, and orientation, I think one of the big themes that came about, and it was understandable when you read the audit, is something that comes more reactive than proactive. I think there is certainly, with 1,800 employees and another 400 part-time employees, we have a fairly sized government. And when you compare that with our HR department and the tasks that they currently have beyond just employee recruitment, hiring, and orientation, it does become a bit more reactive than proactive in the ability to complete some of those tasks related to employment. But we think it's important to point that out, to provide them with suggestions about how we can maybe reverse that and focus again back on the basics of employee recruitment and hiring orientation first and foremost, before we get into specialized projects, that naturally will occur in any government, but getting back to the core mission and goals of HR when it comes to recruitment, hiring, and orientation is one of the common themes that we saw. So anyway, go ahead and read through that over the next month. Let us know of any questions you may have as you're reading it, and we'll await the manager's response on that, as well as the departments. But I think ultimately it'll be a little bit different read for you, with some different suggestions and recommendations. But nonetheless, we're hopeful that it's productive and helpful in the future.
I do have a question or comment, because I mean, just from breezing through here, there are a lot of suggestions in the back at that area where we have those suggestions.
Yes,
here.
findings and recommendations. Yeah.
Right. Where are we in this is perhaps for the manager, in the hiring process for a new HR director?
I couldn't provide that update. I think that would be up to the manager to decide that. Yeah.
And I only say
Sure.
that because I'm looking through this, and it seems to me like there's a lot of stuff in here that would be relevant if, depending on how it goes through and reaction. Let's say most of it is sort of still in there for continuous improvement. Having someone in a leadership position who is aware of these things and has strengths and a commitment to that would be important. So,
Question, I'll just jump in. That was because I highlighted about being reactive and proactive. And one of the things I looked at was, I thought about, if you have leadership and people it seems like a lot of interim and people filling in. And I think it's difficult when you're in that space, you're kind of in a survival mode.
Right.
And when you're in survival mode, it's difficult to focus on the mission and being very strategic in your work. And that was one of the things that jumped out to me, was that I think just having the right staff, or having staff in places that people aren't doing multiple jobs and positions at one time, it does make it difficult to do some of these things. I'm sorry I cut you off, Blaine.
You did. You did. You're sharing wisdom. Well, I'm glad to share what I know and a little bit more. As the direct question is, we had first interviews for HR director this week. So the format that I usually follow that I found very helpful is the first interviews. It's usually the assistant manager, assistant to the manager. We usually have an HR representative there, and we screen 8 to 10 folks and do that, and then we advance a short list to a second interview. In both cases, panel interviews. The second one, I invite different department directors or folks in the government to come, and I usually assign a bit of an exercise as the first part. Give them a challenge, which this is looking really good. To respond to and a more meaningful thing, and they do that in front of some of their peers that they'll be serving. Now, the price of admission is don't pick your favorite. It's not a popularity contest, because invariably I have to take in other factors in naming that. And I don't want somebody to feel like, well, you asked me and you didn't pick my person and all that, and that's just not helpful. And then the other balance of that is I'll let the people develop their own questions, and it's not about me interacting with, but it's watching others interact with that person and getting the best of their thoughts. And at the end of it, I say, tell me what the strengths and challenges you think those folks have. So that's how it is. For context, our longtime HR director left and started a new chapter in his career. He left a very tight group knit of professionals in HR. And then, unfortunately, the opportunity came when the clerk of courts left the court administrator position and ran successfully for office. And Laura Welch, who was our assistant HR director, wanted to return to her roots over the courts, and she does an excellent job. And so we all of a sudden found ourselves without 2 folks. And I'm going to tell you, Lori Pollock is the interim HR director. She worked her way up from the bottom, and everybody believes in Lori. And I won't speak for her, but I'm not sure she's interested in the position. And then Sarah Ivy is a relative newcomer, but she's in the interim assistant. She's doing an excellent job. And I will tell you, those ladies are working hard, and as are the folks under them. So I say all that to say, I have some flux now. I've introduced to all of this. And so I want to tell you where it's going to go and why I'm still involved, because normally you say, well, let the next person hire those people. But I'm afraid we're not in a position to do that. And I believe I have the confidence of the commission to move forward if I need to. I would prefer, though, at the acting manager. So what will happen, y'all, is next Friday, the commission, I believe, will talk about whether or not they want to go ahead and name an acting manager. Sorry to give you all this information. And that person will become effective July 13th. So I felt like, let's go ahead and move forward with the interviews for the sake of the blood pressure of those poor folks in HR. And with the panel interview, I want to have the benefits of the collective wisdom of other folks that'll be here after I'm gone. And so we just had first interviews. We're going to try and have second interviews towards the end of the month, early July. My last day here will be July the 12th. So what I'm saying is this is excellent work. And what I'm willing to do is introduce that perhaps as part of the exercise, if you will. Give it to them in advance. Let them know full well what they're getting into. That's only fair to them. And then have them see if they can tease out maybe how they might operationalize some of this stuff. Although I think you may give them all the answers. But so if the group thinks that's a wise avenue to pursue, then I think I might do that. If that answers your question.
That answers it perfectly.
Yeah.
And if I could, just to piggyback off of what Manager Williams just said, I think going forward, it shines light on the importance of what we do here as a group with these audits and maintaining a schedule that is fixed to the fiscal year. I think, by providing and keeping that tight schedule, we're able to give these documents to incoming new personnel and be helpful, hopefully provide a guide for them so that not only they know what they're going into, but they have a roadmap during their first year or two in the position. And it also speaks to, again, a common theme that you'll see coming forward with regard to succession planning and cross-training. We would be even in more of a dire situation, I think, and not to say that we are. I concur with the manager that both the interim director and assistant director are doing a fantastic job of keeping things going, provided the circumstance that they were given. But it's only because of that succession planning that they were able to, step into those roles. And that's one thing that as a theme, we want to make sure we maintain going forward in our government is that when times like this happen, because there's evidence that it does happen, that we're in a position to continue operations as we need to. So,
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Gavin.
all right, moving on then. Now going into the FY25 audit work plan. So we introduced this to you at the last meeting. We provided you with the risk assessment matrix with a number of topics, about 10 in total, having scored them. Got some initial feedback from you all and are looking hopefully to provide a recommendation that can again move forward to the mayor and commission for their July-August cycle to start out the fiscal year with our new set of assignments. Having just completed FY24 and all audits for the most part in terms of the actual work that staff has to be doing, it has been complete, and now we're just running through approval cycles. It's time for us to begin working again now, the earliest possible date, and that would be if the commission can approve this in early August, we'll hit the ground running with our next set of audits. And so obviously, even with July being the beginning of the fiscal year, there's plenty for us to do as a department in preparation for some of these audits, but we're looking for your direction today to hopefully prove a recommendation that we can begin to formulate some of our directives from and to pass along to the mayor and commission. So I provided as auditor 2 options for you based on the topics that were in the matrix themselves. I have suggested option A, but certainly willing to talk about both options with you and any other questions you may have. And I have incorporated some of the recommendations that you all suggested at our last meeting, which was the follow-up statuses for some of our previous audits, the actual putting together of each fiscal year's annual work plan, which is this amount of work, including the matrix, and sort of fine-tuning that process and improving upon that and getting it to you all a little earlier so that you have more time to discuss and deliberate. And then also just acknowledging our work with Peace Cobb. And so that was also a suggestion that you all had putting into our work plan. So any questions, I'm certainly happy to answer those today, but we would look for a recommendation if at all possible today.
And just a sidebar, because we passed the budget last night, Gavin should be getting another person.
That's correct.
After July 1, so.
January, it was a half year.
Yeah. So that'll help them with some of what they're doing with Peace Corps. So,
Mhm.
but we did pass the budget last night. So
I do have a question here for you. Could you highlight the differences between your recommended and the option B?
Yes,
Why you picked one over the other?
sure.
Or
So
emphasizing one over the other.
I think honestly, the real changes between option A and option B are just the difference between 2 fairly sized audits. Both HCD and transit are decent sized departments with a number of staff and significant budgets. And looking over the time frame to be able to conduct interviews and analyze some of those budgets along with our balance of Peace Corps. There's two audits basically in option A, in addition to follow-ups and everything else. Option B provides 3 audits, the first still being HCD, but instead of another fairly sized one like transit, we could do 2 smaller sized audits, which would be magistrate court and information technology. So that was ultimately the difference between option A and option B.
And they both have this tell me about the to be determined one. I mean,
In the special projects, portion?
Both special projects, so that's okay, got it.
Yeah, so it's not unlike what we proposed actually in the current work plan.
Yeah.
If something comes up, whether internally in our office that needs our attention, based on my discretion, or if I get directives from UL as a commission mid-cycle, that gives us the flexibility to work on some of those projects without having to go through this entire process
Okay,
of amending the work
Right.
plan.
but it doesn't include any time frame, so we're not leaving a space where we can do something else. It's just on there as a filler.
Place-
Correct.
And the
Placeholder.
time frame placeholder, but the time frame would obviously have to be
Yes,
adjusted
established.
for the established.
Yeah. And staff would certainly come to you as the audit committee with any of those special projects to make you aware of those, as well as the estimated time or balance with our workload. What this does, though, is at least give us and you as the committee the flexibility to move forward with those without having to bring it all the way up to the commission level.
Okay, and then what was the, obviously, are you, you're highlighting the transit
Mhm.
versus doing
Actually,
the magistrate and information technology.
Correct. So HCD is an option for both
Right.
plans. We
Yeah.
feel like that one is very important to do. We did suggest transit over both magistrate and information technology, just based on not only our risk assessment, but also that period of transition that has again occurred in some of these departments. So for example, transit is under new leadership as of about a month ago. I wouldn't say necessarily new, but the interim was named full-time director. Certainly will do a good job, but as we just discussed with HR, I think it will be valuable for that new director to have us come in, take a look at things and provide some assistance to them while they're, working on the day-to-day operations, to be able to provide some long-term goals as well. So we found that being close to a transition period would perhaps be more valuable at this point in time.
And perhaps also with the transit, with these two transit, what do we call these centers, transfer stations? And looking at our future land use map, thinking about transit overall, that would be helpful for the mayor and commissions.
Yes, and transit, just for y'all's reminder, when you look back at the audits that have been completed since unification, transit has not had an internal audit done. They are subject to annual audits by the federal government and things like that, but they've never had an internal audit by ACC Gov. The other two departments, information technology, and I believe magistrate, have had previous audits. It's been a good number of years, but nonetheless, they've at least had some audits in the past. So
So the pushback that I would give on this is, it's because of the profession I'm in. You hear constantly about these issues with IT, and I mean, it's the only one of these on the matrix that is a catastrophic risk. Is your sense in researching this that where we are with IT is, and it can never be perfect, but it's not as if it's a situation where things aren't working?
correct. I would say that based on my knowledge and my conversations, I am not aware of. First of all, I would agree with you. IT is always a risk vulnerability in any government, I think. I think we are certainly in a position currently, to my knowledge, where there's not a heightened level of risk or known issues that have occurred that need analysis. But I think one of the factors that played into our choosing transit over IT is just this past year, we have implemented a governance committee for our information technology department. That is something that is newer to our government, and has pulled together individuals from different departments to sit on this governance committee and recognize the fact that there are changes in the information technology realm, whether that's AI, whether that's cybersecurity, or just collectively as a government, how we are purchasing equipment for IT and the software that we are purchasing. I think they've recognized in recent years that there is a way to get a hold of some of these things from a more comprehensive viewpoint. And so we wanted to allow IT the opportunity to get that governance committee sort of on the ground, working And if that's the case and it's all well, they might be doing the audits for us essentially by being in existence. That doesn't prevent us from saying after a year, well, we don't think you're quite doing what we would do from an audit perspective. But before we jumped into there, we just thought it might be valuable to let them have their time to get that governance committee up and running. But I don't know if the manager also could provide more insight on the governance committee as well.
No, thank you. And I won't repeat anything that you said, but for a while there's just so many different software platforms, and each one requires its own maintenance agreement. And and we are fortunate to have now a geospatial information analysis office, which when we talk about open data, it's easy to conflate all this stuff. And so there are distinct roles. There is some overlap. But I'm telling you, the strength of this government lies in the consensus of the commission and the excellent staff that we have. And much like my interviews I just told you about, we harness the power of people's collective thinking. And so Travis Cooper, our chief information officer, we all struggle with trying to get people to adhere to policies, and you need to report this, you need to do that. Well, why not invite them to the table and just have a discussion about it? And so the governance committee was born. It's got structures, it's got bylaws, it has a rhythm to it. And it is allowing us not only to not be reactive to immediate transactions that are happening, but to be a little more aspirational about what's over the horizon. And so I think there's a lot of good going there. I think there's a lot of good things that you're going to find in your journeys here. It can always stand for improvement. And so that would be the will of the committee on where you want to go. But I think there's a good story to tell there, and they're learning. But there's some good stuff there. I hope that answered the question.
I mean, obviously, thank you both. Obviously, from its very nature, I mean, every single thing we're talking about here is just a foundational aspect of government that you could say has got to have attention paid to it. But to me, and I'm sure it's the same with the rest of you, the two bedrocks are HR and IT. Because HR are the people, and IT, it doesn't matter what you're working in. That's your tools. And if your tools don't work, nothing else matters.
If I could add on to your comments, so we did speak a little bit about this in the last meeting, and we had this kind of idea of this mechanism of trying to capture, because we struggle with the how of IT, the how and all the elements of it in terms of doing audit. What would you audit, where, how, what would you focus on? And it's the complexity of it. It's really daunting when you think of trying to capture what the audit is going to do. And then also the idea of having anyone outside coming in, for the specific tough technological issues of IT and the AI stuff and all of the newest stuff. And of course, the concerns of ever bringing any outside in with doing IT, because you want to be able to do that in-house. So we had a concept of trying to do a kind of a piece of an information paper for us and for the government to say, how and when should we do this, and put that in the work plan for the IT piece, instead of doing the audit, instead of putting that on the sheet, saying, how should we do the audit, and doing all the work on saying, what's the best approach, outside, inside, some combination,
Right.
now, later, right? And do that piece. And I would be much more comfortable with that IT piece being looked at from some way in a from the audit approach. So if we could capture that somehow in the work plan, then that would make me feel much more comfortable that we're going somewhere on that, right? So it would probably, whatever we come up with would be in the work plan for next year for IT, and IT would be on the right.
So I think and you're correct, Ms. Higgins, that we did talk about that. And I think what we ultimately decided is that I think you have two options here. I think, to Mr. Blunt's credit, you can go with option B, where we just do a periodic audit of IT and sort of capture some of that same information as part of the periodic audit, which, again, we put it forward as an option, so we're not against it. That is certainly up to y'all. Or if you decided to go with option A, I think, as Commissioner Myers just pointed out, in our special projects to be determined, that's one of those things that could fit within there, where we as staff do an initial conversation with management, with IT, with even the attorney's office, because of the confidentiality that goes with some of our cybersecurity, to discuss, okay, how are we doing in these specific areas? come back to you with basically an informational memo, 1 to 2 pages of here's where we can feel comfortable. Here's something that we may want to consider in the future looking at, or these are steps that are being taken currently to address some of these issues without completely, diluting the confidential nature of IT and posing a risk. I think there's still a way for us internally to provide some of that information to you and maybe give you some comfort or not with where we are in the form of a 1 to 2 page memo just during the course of the next year as one of those special projects. So,
And capture what you're able to communicate what this committee is doing
Yeah.
in that regard. And that would help me
Sure.
satisfy my concerns on not being able to go ahead with a full audit of IT.
But either one is fine with us.
And to be clear, I have no objections to going with option A.
Mhm.
As I've said, throughout this whole process, I'm not just trying to inflate all of your egos. I mean, I think a lot of y'all, what you're doing and what you've accomplished here. So it's gonna have to be a situation where it's gonna definitely have to be a situation where it's clearly, there's some huge red light going on for me to question you on this. But especially given what you said about what they've been doing within IT, to constantly monitor that, yes, that makes me feel a lot better.
Okay.
So it would be, in a sense, come out with a sort of proposal for having to go, here's where things are now, quick overview and a proposal, because it may be that it's more focused
Mhm.
rather than the periodic IT. It was a focus on AI, for example, and risk.
I would agree. I think if you chose it as a special project, again, given the fact that we'll be doing actual periodics during the next year, we would fit it in as a 1 to 2 page, couple week initiative, provide you with that information of going into even the next fiscal year. Here's what we looked at real quickly. Here's an idea for fiscal year 26 as to whether you want to do a full in-depth audit of IT or a specific initiative of IT or a periodic audit if you choose not to go with one this year. But again, I don't want to say, option A is the end all be all. We provided 2 options for a reason because we're comfortable with either option. And if you feel it's more efficient and comfortable for you all to just go ahead and do a quick periodic audit of IT as part of this coming year's work plan, we're perfectly fine with that. We've planned for that in option B. So we are not going to be upset one way or another if you decide to go that route. So,
And if I might, I want to say that on behalf of staff as well, not that there's 2 sides or anything. Audits tend to have a negative connotation. But, I think what I know is that there's a lot, Ms. Higgins, you said it. You said, well, I'm just not sure what's happening there. And we don't tell our story very well. And so I believe that you're going to find some things along the way, whatever audit you choose, whichever in depth, that some things that will surprise you and say, gosh, I'm glad to know that. And I ask that you share that with others. This audit, this is a way of not only finding ways to improve, which I think is very healthy for this government, but it's also a way to tell the story of what's happening in ways that we struggle. So please don't be apologetic if you're on the fence, like which way should we go? We welcome either way. Yeah. It's just, it can be a burden on, like with HR, I would almost ask y'all to defer on that with all the transition, but things happen so quickly. That's the only thing, is just considering what our department is and how much burden of time, but I'm sure the efficiencies are going to improve as y'all do more and more of them.
yeah.
But,
I'm just wondering if we're heading that way with this, whatever we're calling 1 to 2 page white paper, if somehow we can capture that in the work plan so that we can make sure we communicate that also to the commission and the public, I think that would be helpful.
We could, if you choose to go with option A and put the IT quick check in the special projects, what we can do, if you, again, feel comfortable with that, you could, in theory, provide a recommendation for option A today to move forward to the loan commission with the condition or with the change that under special projects, we as staff list out one of those specifically as the check-in with IT. And so,
If I might make a suggestion with that, and this may be too focused a thing for that, it's like, now we can just do all of IT. What's in the news in regards to cyber risk, especially as far as governments goes, is, some people think it's overblown. My experience from what I've read and, again, doing what I do, it's worse. Because a lot of this is not reported. So, and because it is such as is noted, a catastrophic issue, and it's also something that the public is some degree is aware of. I would say it, maybe for this first year, just limit it to evaluating our cybersecurity protocols. Are we doing what we're supposed to be
One
doing?
component of it.
But again, it may be too focused where it's like, yeah, we could do that in 10 minutes. I mean, that's really not that big a deal, but I have no idea. They may say, no, we would welcome taking a full view of this at this point to make sure we're doing as much as can be done on this particular issue.
If I could offer something there, and I'm sorry to jump in. This comes up often from folks who are concerned and well-intentioned, but let me tell you a consequence of that. These are all public records. And so you're gonna put everything we're doing for cybersecurity on the table for folks to understand. I'm not asking you to trust us. If this is somewhere you wanna go, I would like for us to speak with the attorney and see if you want the mayor and commission to be apprised of what our efforts are. I have to believe that security is perhaps a eligible reason to go in executive session. So I would caution you. I think it's a great thought,
Yeah.
but think about when you unveil it.
Yeah.
And I didn't come up with that. Travis Cooper told me that last time. So
So that's a very
yeah.
good point. Because the last thing you want to do is give a roadmap to people that want to hack into your
It's
network.
kind of like in a school would do a
Yeah.
safety plan. It's like, okay.
And
but you're dead on. I mean, look, Jackson County got held hostage, didn't they,
Yeah.
recently?
they did, Fulton County.
Fulton County, yeah, and that could happen to us.
Yeah.
And you're only as strong as your weakest link. I know there's stories about people would throw these thumb drives in the Department of Defense parking lot, hoping somebody would stick it in the computer and open it up, and now they're in. You hear things like that.
And again, I'm telling y'all, that's the tip of the iceberg. There are so much that never comes up for whatever reason, because you're embarrassed or because, you just don't want getting out there that you were hacked, and then you risk the, fall back on that because people's information is out there.
Well, let me give you a quick morsel. It is on Director Cooper's mind. We've recently gone to two-factor authentication, which is a robust way of trying to separate. We weren't there a year or two ago, so these are foremost. But if you agree, I can speak with the auditor, and we can come up with a plan that shares information but shields it appropriately.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
Oh,
and the
no,
man was right, what we found now, all thing we go in executive session about is cyber security because of how scrutinized that is right now and what's happening to government around the country. So we talk about our plan, and now I don't know our plan. And maybe I should know our plan, but it's there, it's real. And again, I think, Carl, I think you bring up a good point. But I think we may have to tread a little light,
No, I completely
in
understand
that
that.
stuff. So but it is a sensitive area that, I think as a local government, we could look at it. I guess the thing that we could do possible that may help Gavin, I don't know, and imagine may answer this, just what are some of the protections possible that we got in place, to shield some of those things. That may be something that we may share. If that's part of it.
Yeah, so I think, again, we can either incorporate this as a part of a overall periodic audit where we're also looking at their structure in general of staffing and financials from an IT standpoint. Or we just specifically look at this as a special project where between the manager, attorney's office, and IT, our office sits down with all of them specifically to have a discussion about cybersecurity and the steps that we are or are not taking, and we provide you with a brief memo in generic terms without detailing specific things. This won't be an audit. This will essentially be a memo to you all saying, upon analysis, this is what operational analysis can offer in terms of comfort level with where we are, where we're not, or where we're heading. I think that would probably be the approach that we'd have to take in either sense. Even in the audit itself, we're not going to elaborate steps in our security protocol in the audit. So Either option is up to you all as a committee, and I think there's a way for us to get to a comfort level with you all and provide you with some information without going too into detail on it.
So I think that the focus as far as the concern of the public and the concern of the risk to the government, that is really the heart of it. But I think that the analysis of the IT function is also important. So I would ask that whatever investigation or analysis that we do on what and how we should look at it should be just a little bit more comprehensive. That cybersecurity can be the focus of what we're concerned about in terms of how we can understand what protections we have and how it's done, and we don't have to know the details, and we don't have to know, that the programs are there, but that when we do IT, that we have to really do the rest of it, as well. So the information paper would be more on, this is the approach that we would have for it. This is what we recommend on the approach for it. So you say we can do this, this, and this, and this. What I want to know is, what do you think we should be looking at, how we should be looking at it, and what recommendations you have?
Yeah.
To include a focus on the stuff that's in executive session that we don't really know the details, but that is done, that it's
Yeah.
being done, that's being discussed, that it's, and then we have the more understanding of that particular risk. So I agree,
And let's be
that's
honest,
the highest risk. The government, the hospitals, we don't have anything to do with them, but boy, when they get hit, that's disaster, right? The water department, the electrical grid, all that stuff, right?
and let's be honest, especially when you get into IT stuff, if we start getting into details of this, even if we could,
It's
yeah, we are certainly not gonna know that.
Yes.
Yeah, I must say, I'm in that generation that we try, but most of it it's magic.
It is magic.
The other thing that I had that was not in the work plan that I thought that we had talked about putting in the work plan just to be able to capture it was the Peace Cobb hours, was that we don't have it. Is it in there? Did I miss it?
Well, I think what we briefly touched upon it in the intro paragraph is that it's a balance with Peace Cobb, but there's no way for us to basically state we're only going to dedicate this many hours to Peace Cobb a week or a month or a year.
Right.
That's going to fluctuate based on demand, just like y'all's work is going to fluctuate as well. And it's just up to staff to try and balance that. But I think different from last year and the agenda report that will go forward to the commission when they consider this, it is going to spell out the fact that whatever work plan we go with,
There's a
being mindful of the fact that we do have a Peace Cobb program that also requires our
Right.
attention.
right. Okay.
It seems like that should be, if you look at this last page, where it has development of subsequent years assignments, and really 1 to 4 are about the development of a new work plan, right? It seems like number 5 does not fit into that and should be just a separate item in there, not part of that, subsumed in there, because it is a different item.
Sure.
And
I don't think we'd have an issue, Commissioner, with basically creating a separate box
yeah,
underneath the one for annual audit work plan, where we just put the type as Peace Cobb, and we do a separate box just with a couple
yeah,
items regarding Peace Cobb. If that's
yeah,
what you're
that's,
suggesting.
and I don't, that's the audit work plan. There's a question of, it's acknowledging it because it's really not part of the audit work plan, but it's just acknowledging it in a sense that it is a responsibility that the office has.
Yeah.
And a time commitment. So I don't even know if it needs to be, I don't know. like
I think that was
a
our
special box.
hesitation with it.
Right.
Yeah.
A special kind of box that says, just remember, we also have this other responsibility.
Sure.
And they meet once a month, so yeah.
Yeah. That we're at your discretion. If you choose to move this forward, if you want a separate box, we can do that. I think that was the initial hesitation with myself.
Yeah.
It's just because this is an audit.
It
Yeah.
doesn't fit in with this logically, so it needs to be out of there
Okay.
and needs to somehow have it's a gigantic asterisk, whether or not it's a separate box. Like I said, maybe it has a different shape to the box, something, an acknowledgement.
We can come up with something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
What's the trend line on that workload?
Sure. So right now, at the moment, Again, it fluctuates, but roughly, if you were to take me specifically, even though both Judy and Katie certainly assist with Peace Cobb initiatives, if you were to just take my time on a monthly basis, about 50%, 2 weeks of my month is dedicated to Peace Cobb from an hourly standpoint. So roughly 80 hours of full-time equivalency is dedicated to Peace Cobb a month.
And keep in mind, because they're just getting started, and I'm an ex-official on their committee, complaints start coming in, and so they have to look at the complaints and make sure it's going through the proper channels and processes. So that's why I'm glad that he's gonna be getting this other position that can dedicate that time to them and stuff. And again, I don't know how many we got in the hopper right now, complaints, but as which is a great thing, our police department is fully staffed, will be fully staffed in the future. So also complaints could go up. So again, you just got to look over that over time and stuff. So yeah. Any other questions?
So do we need a, yes, so.
I would, yeah, I mean,
make a-
ultimately, we'd like some marching orders
Yeah.
from y'all.
So can I make
I'll make a motion.
a motion to accept option A as recommended by the auditor with the addition of an information paper under special projects and capturing Peace Cobb in a new box at the end of the work plan.
Second.
So it's been motioned by Ms. Higgins and second by Mr. Blunt that we will ask the audit department to focus on option A and to get those going. And get
We have a second.
all in favor.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will get that up to the mayor and commission.
And just to be clear, so after we get through these, we'll come back and look at information technology.
So what I anticipate us doing is, as we are able to staff, which may be mid-year in between the two audits, when things are perhaps a little slower, we will initiate conversations with IT and with the attorney's office. And prior to the end of the fiscal year, is what I can promise you is that you will have a memo to you regarding how we can proceed going forward with any future audits or examination of IT.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
Internal auditors update? All right, thank you, Commissioner. Calendar wise, one thing Commissioner Fisher and I wanted to talk about is the fact that our next scheduled meeting is July 4th, which is a holiday. The government will be closed that day, and I hope that you all are on vacation. I certainly plan to be. So with the moving forward of both the work plan and economic development, and knowing that we are going to be awaiting HR's response, which won't come to us until, around the same time. I don't necessarily see a need for y'all to meet in July. And so rather than even reschedule the July 4th, obviously up to the chair, but my suggestion would be to just formally cancel a July meeting of the audit committee and sort of start back fresh in August. But I think Commissioner Fisher wanted to also check on the August date, because right now we're scheduled for August 1st.
Right. And I know that you're gonna be out of the country, I believe, during that time. And I didn't know if anybody else was gonna be traveling at August 1st meeting. I'm gonna be away.
I'm good.
Always seem to be stepping all over you. I apologize.
All I was saying is I'm good. I thought we were
good.
just all
When did school start back?
probably August.
I think it's August. I think it might be August 1st
Is it the
Okay.
first one?
because the forming starts, during the middle of the week.
Yeah.
Let me-
I'm not sure, but it might be. If it's not that, it's the following week. I can guarantee.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
gonna look
definitely.
right quick.
Yeah, you got it, Doctor.
I'm looking it up, yes.
We got the right person right here.
Right, I don't
As
know
long as we can have
anymore.
Quorum, it's
Yeah,
okay,
right, yeah.
I mean, I'd be happy to have it the week before that or 2 weeks after that. But I can do the week before, I'm here up until the end of July.
Right.
Um,
And that was the question I was gonna ask you all.
I want to
I was
go.
gonna ask August 1st is normally, that's not red, that's first Thursday. But if we want to push it back, would y'all be in favor? Or do we want to stay August 1st, knowing that Ms. Higgins will miss that particular meeting? So again, whatever consensus of the group, I'm fine.
I'm sorry, Ms. Higgins, will you miss the first or the eighth?
The first, so I'm gone the first 2 weeks in August. Yeah,
Okay,
Oh, so you missed
The
I
eighth
mean-
as well.
okay.
Yeah.
you missed the eighth, right?
right, yeah. No, I could only come if we backed it up.
Right.
If we rescheduled the July 4th meeting to
The
the,
end of
to
July.
like the end of the third Thursday rather than the first Thursday. But
Is there a problem doing
if you,
the
it's.
15th? Not too late.
The only,
August first is the first day of school.
Okay.
So smart.
Okay.
so what I would suggest as some options, is, there's certainly, if you all can, there's a possibility to move it ahead a week, so that last week in July, we can look at that date. Or, if you wanted to push it to like a third week in August, or even just go all the way to September, that's fine too. I will say that, and we're fine either way, because the work is done. It's just a matter of getting it on the cycle with the commission. But if you meet at the end of July or early August, the HR report will be on the August, September cycle. I think if we do wait until the third week of August or later, you're just pushing it back a month, which, I mean, there's no harm, no foul in that, but we
So-
wouldn't make that cycle.
So we could meet in the end of, like, the week of, like, the 17th or the 24th, are those days of July?
July.
Would that work?
Those
I
are,
mean,
that's
your-
Wednesdays if you want to do Wednesdays, but
Well, 18th, okay. I'm
18th or the
looking at
20th,
the
yeah,
calendar.
I'm fine for any time in July.
And we'll be just getting back that Tuesday, we'll have
Right,
our
on the
first
16th.
agenda.
I mean, like on the. So I mean, I think that is always a good contribution to the group.
Most certainly.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and so that would work for me.
Well, let me throw this out there. Gavin, if we go after, we had discussed, Gavin, I had talked about this. We'll still be waiting for the HR report to come, right?
So we'll have the HR response the first week of July. And
Okay,
so we'll have that prepared for you all, whether you choose to meet later in July or early
okay,
August.
that's what I want
Yeah,
to make sure,
yeah.
okay. So I'm okay if y'all want to look at July the 18th.
And then the next meeting would be in September.
Yeah, I don't think there would be a need necessarily
Yeah.
to meet in August
Yeah.
at that point.
I think that'd be a good idea.
Well,
Yeah.
so July
You're
18th.
good on the 18th?
Yes.
I'm good on the 18th.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay, so okay.
Great. Yeah,
Yeah, it's right for you, Lynn.
So what I would ask then, Chair, is that you all formally vote to amend the schedule to change to the July 4th meeting to July 18th, and then to cancel any August meeting and just pick back up on the regular schedule in September.
Okay. Can I get a motion to cancel the July 4th meeting and move that meeting to July?
How about,
So
go ahead. So I can make a motion to reschedule the July 4th meeting to July 18th. And to cancel the August
meeting.
meeting.
Okay, second.
Been motion by Ms. Higgins, second by Commissioner Myers. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Real quickly, to finish out the auditor's report, Commissioner Fisher sort of alluded to it earlier. The MNC voted last night to approve the budget. So how that affects us is with regard to a position of a management analyst, a third management analyst to join Judy and Katie. That will be a half-year funded position, basically beginning in January. So it will be full-time thereon afterwards, but it will first take place in January at the earliest. And then just the monthly Peace Corps workload update.
Can I ask a
Oh,
question
go ahead.
for that on that position?
Mhm.
Is the idea that that position is going to have a Peace Corps focus, or is it still going to be?
It's still going to be a general shared one. I have found, and to both Judy and Katie's credit, they've been fantastic in either covering for me or covering for each other. And so we all have been cross-trained, and I think that will be the continued process that we look at. But as Commissioner Fisher pointed out, just that extra person and those extra hours is going to help significantly with the workload that we experience when it comes to just Peace Cub in general, as well as audits. So spreading those hours out is going to be helpful no matter what. So and then from a Peace Cub workload standpoint, again, we averaged about 56, 57 hours last month, so about 14 hours a week. We did get, to their credit, they finished processing their first complaint all the way through. So there was a decision made on that. We do have another complaint in waiting that is pending some information. And then we finished a community survey that staff is currently working on the results of right now, that we'll release to not only Peace Cub, but the Mayor and Commission and public eventually, with how the state of law enforcement is viewed in the community currently, was the focus of that community survey. So, and that's all I have.
Any questions before we close out? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Thank you. Y'all have a good day and a good weekend.